in the day it was fine, and maybe in the evening I'd have those, these feelings come back, and it was, there were tears and whatnot, but I still managed to feel really good at certain moments of the day, and that was so important for me. And I maintain that if you're going through a tough time in your life, or you're going through anything, whether it's stress at work or whether it's anything, you have to carve out that time to double down on your healthy living practices, because that will help you so much.
Hey, you guys, thank you for tuning into the Culture of Health podcast. And this is one of the best episodes of this podcast, hands down. Jeffrey explains so many important concepts in a way that will make so much sense to you and hopefully will propel you to action. The overall theme that I hope you walk away with is this: how you experience and process difficult things in life is very much influenced by your health, especially when considering your gut health. Your gut and brain are connected in such a way that when your gut health is thrown off, your thoughts could be negatively impacted and your view on life completely altered. This is why maintaining good gut health should be a non-negotiable for you. It is for me, and that's why we use SuperGut's fiber mix in my house. It's no secret that fiber is linked to good gut health, and SuperGut makes an easy-to-use fiber mix that you can mix in just about anything. Each serving has 9 grams of prebiotic fiber that'll feed the good bacteria in your gut and slowly improve the condition of your gut microbiome. A robust microbiome is strongly associated with longevity, sustained energy, clear thoughts, and, more relevant to this episode, a more resilient body. You won't find a person on earth who will avoid hard things in life, and shoring up your gut health is one way to prepare yourself when that time comes. If you're not currently intentional about your fiber intake and know you could benefit from improving your gut health, I'm inviting you to give SuperGut's Fiber Mix a try. You can mix it in just about anything, and it won't change the taste of your food. To feel the benefits of better gut health, I left a special link for you in the show notes of this podcast that I hope you take advantage of. All right. Let's dive into this epic conversation with Jeffrey. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Culture of Health podcast, where we're showing you guys that culture largely influences health. There's a lot of information out there about what to do to obtain optimal health, and culture is oftentimes left out of the mix. And you have to filter this information through a culturally relevant lens. So today, we're going to dive more into this culture. Today's guest is someone that I have a lot of respect for. He's most well known for his the content that he produces that leads people to include more plants in their diet, which is supported by several studies. But beyond that, that's what he's most known for. I personally respect him more for his philosophy on life, nutrition, and just the resilience that he's shown through some of the hard things that he's experienced. So today's episode is going to be about that. We're going to talk a little bit about grief. We're going to talk about resilience. We're going to talk a lot about nutrition and philosophy, and help people who are going through tough things in life understand that prioritizing your health should still be at the top of your list. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, this is Jeffrey, bro, again. Man, so excited to have you on the pod. And you've blown up over the past 12 months, man.
Yeah, it's been crazy. I really appreciate the very flattering introduction as well. But I think we connected some time ago, and obviously we did an Instagram live not too long ago as well. And a lot of people got some real good value from that. But I'm really just excited to do this, excited to talk about some really important things and continue to just try and push forward and make changes we're doing.
Good, man. Well, yeah, I just want to just jump right in. So again, health is largely dependent on several different factors, and you have gone through a lot of things in your life that have kind of shaped your philosophy as it is today about health, nutrition, just life in general. But one thing you went through in particular, which was losing your wife, just very recently. I kind of want to open the conversation and kind of give you the floor to talk about that experience, and then kind of go along a journey of how you healed and how it changed your perspective, just on how you treat your body, what that process was like to heal, and I'm sure you're still doing so. Just kind of want to open the floor and let you tell a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it was in November 2021, just 5 months after we'd got married. So very big shock, very kind of a real tough thing to take. Probably what's definitely the lowest moment that I've ever had to experience in my life, and something that you never actually think that you're going to experience. I was 33 when it happened. You always think that the first experience of grief will be losing your parents or something like that. So you kind of try and mentally prepare for that, because we obviously, of course, know that our parents aren't going to be around forever. But that was a big blow. And I think it taught me a lot about, I guess, resilience and trying to cultivate that. It taught me a lot about the importance of community in kind of managing grief, and having people around you that just constantly were just going to uplift you, that were going to, help you get through such a dark time. I often thought, obviously, as bad as that time was, I'm so grateful that I had, my close friends and my family rally around me, because there are people out there who lose people close to them in their lives, and they don't have those people to kind of lean on, to be able to get solace and perspective from. So I was very grateful to have that. There were a few things that I did. I mean, because the way I like to do things, I kind of like to almost intellectualize things in a way. I want to try and understand, how can I, make my way through this? And I want to try and maybe understand the perspective of other people who have gone through the same thing, or something similar at least. So I read a book called Option B, which is a book by Sheryl Sandberg, who's the COO of Facebook. And it detailed her experience of losing her husband while they were on holiday. And it was a very raw, very unfiltered kind of account of her experience, and having to go back to work, and she had 2 kids as well. And it helped to validate my experience, because when you're going through something like that, you almost think that you're the only person going through it. You can't, everything stops around you. The world just stops. But this is something that so many people experience. And I think what was so important was actually to be able to understand the experience of someone else, and be able to kind of apply that and see and allow it to validate what I was going through. And I also read another book called Man's Search for Meaning, which I felt was really powerful. That's probably up there with The Power of Now as the best book that I've ever read, because it detailed, obviously it's by Viktor Frankl, it detailed his experience of being in a Nazi concentration camp, and just the harrowing experience that he had to go through, losing friends close to him, seeing people die, people lying in urine and feces, just almost being dehumanized, but trying to find value and meaning and purpose in their life in the midst of all of that, and still trying to say yes to life despite the circumstances that were surrounding him. So that was a really powerful read. And it kind of, I wanted to, once the new year came around, obviously I took the time out to grieve, and a lot of tears, of course, because it's something that you just never expect to experience. But I was really committed to coming to a place of acceptance of what happened. And it also gave me a perspective on, understanding that the cycle of life also involves death as well. And obviously it wasn't in the circumstances that you'd expect, because we equate age with death. We think that you get old and then you die. But, I just think it's, something that I, got to grips with quite quickly after the new year. And in terms of, when we'll come on to the health side of things as well, but yeah, so that I wanted to just get a clear perspective and get a clear kind of acceptance of what happened, to allow me to try and move forward, because I did want to move forward, and I know she would have not wanted me to kind of be stuck. And just touching on her anyway, she was an incredible human being. Like, she changed my life in insurmountable ways. I met her at a time when I didn't really think that I would ever meet someone, didn't really ever think that I was going to get married, and she's just an incredible human being, just a beautiful soul, and so may her soul rest in peace. And even though I'm in a great place now, and I'm in a new relationship, which I'm super happy about, and just very, really a beautiful kind of thing to be able to continue practicing love in that way, I still have so much love for Jas in my heart, and that will always be there. From a health standpoint, I think one of the things I felt was really important, obviously after the first week that it happened, I was like, right, I need to obviously my first week I was all over the place, head was everywhere, didn't really know where I was, what I was doing, moved back to my mum's and that kind of stuff. But after that, I was like, I need to get back onto my healthy living routine, training in the gym, hitting the weights, eating the healthy food, going for my walks, going for my runs. Because I just felt that in a time like this, I need to do things that I know are going to make me feel good. I train every day because that helps me feel the best version of myself. So at a time like that, when your back's up against the wall and you're literally in the lowest moment, it's almost an invitation to lean into those habits even more, because you need something which is going to help keep your head above water. So I was hitting the gym with my brother, you know, going for runs, going for walks, you know, being able to just kind of get back into my routine. Obviously, I went to, you know, get the healthy foods and whatnot. My mom was helping me get some foods and things like that. And that helped me like insurmountably because I was like, right, the endorphins are going. I'm back in my routine and I'm back in my habits. I'm starting to, I feel good even though I feel terrible. Do you get what I'm saying? Like two things were kind of existing at once. But that was massive for me, you know, being in the gym with my brother and just hitting the weights and just, you know, still being able to, you know, have conversations, whether it be certain things that we would maybe find funny or laugh about or whatever. But of course there were, you know, in the day it was fine. And maybe in the evening I'd have those, you know, these feelings come back and it was, you know, there were tears and whatnot, but I still managed to feel really good at certain moments of the day. And that was so important for me. And I maintain that if you're going through a tough time in your life or you're going through anything, whether it's stress at work or whether it's anything, you have to carve out that time to double down on your healthy living practices because that will help you so much. So yeah, and as I said, it's been a
Yeah.
continuous. Yeah, go on.
No, go ahead. Yours been a
No, I was
continuous
going to say
process.
it's been a continuous process. I think, you know, as I said, I'm in a new relationship, and I'm just really blessed and grateful to have that, and
Yeah.
you know, just continuing to look at life in a new way and just treat life as, you know, as best as possible and appreciate the beauty that life has to offer, even though the dark moments have been there. So yeah, it's been lots of ups and downs, but I'm in a good place.
Yeah, that's super encouraging, man. I listened to your podcast. I wish I could remember the name. Just for the fellas that hosted you, I did subscribe and give it 5 stars in case they hear this. But it was your most recent episode where you talked about this
Yeah.
a little bit more. And it's super encouraging to hear just like your perspective and how well you've, you know, processed this. One thing that you said on it that was really interesting. I'm kind of paraphrasing, but like there's no playbook on grief. You know, there's no standard way that people are supposed to go through this. And you, for someone who had a lot of respect for your health, you understood how important your health was prior to going through that. And so you knew how important it was to bring that back into your life. But for that short period of time where you kind of, you know, I'm sure it was like a unraveling in a sense where it's like, I don't care about anything else. Like, I'm not working out, I'm not running. That's, you know, congruent with what a lot of people experience when they go through loss. What is your philosophy? Because I think that's what it all boils down to, right? Like, what is your philosophy on life that helped you to like pull yourself and say, I'm going to continue to put myself first? Because telling someone to put themselves first who doesn't quite understand, it can fall on deaf ears. How would you make that like more palatable to the average person who's not as aware of their health as you are?
I think you've just got to, you know, outline to people that their life matters more than they actually know. Like they have so much to offer, and they may not realize that, but they've got so much to offer to their friends. They've got so much to offer to their family. They've got so much to offer to themselves to enhance their career prospects, to enhance their longevity. And your health has to be like a real solid foundation within that. So for me, I just felt like I had to get back into that. I had to be like, I know I can still offer so much to the world. And I think it obviously did help that I also had, you know, I feel like health is a huge part of not just how I live, but also my purpose as well, in terms of being able to, what I've been doing on social media, on my website and things like that, and encouraging people to, you know, head down that path of whether it's getting more plants onto their plate or all the other health practices that I talk about and discuss. Like having that purpose and finding that meaning in life is so important. And that will, when you have that, it will allow you to almost segue into wanting to be the best version of yourself, you know. And again, I think one thing that I have to do, that I have to obviously, you know, caveat this with, is that there is no right way to deal with grief. You know, if someone else was in my shoes, I wouldn't be telling them you've got to do this or you've got to do that. I might tell them these are the kind of things that helped me, but every which way that people deal with grief is the right way for them. There is no, like, as you said, there's no kind of blueprint. There's no, right, you go through something like this, you need to do these 5 steps. There's this, I think there's 5 stages of grief thing, but again, it's not really applicable because it's, you know, not everyone's going to go through those stages in the way that it's been outlined. So yeah, I just think whilst it's of course a very difficult thing for anyone to go through and there's no playbook, I do feel that it's important to remember that, as I said, whatever hard things you're going through, your life carries meaning. and there is purpose in there. You just have to find it. And with that purpose should lead you towards wanting to become the best version of yourself and prioritizing your health at whatever level. It doesn't even have to be, at the kind of advanced level that maybe yourself or myself are at, but just taking those initial steps to try and find a way to, build a platform of health that works for you is just so, so important.
Yeah, that's one of the things that kind of comes to my mind often is like I personally have never experienced grief to that magnitude, but I've seen people close to me. Like I've talked about this a little bit on Instagram before, but I have a brother who I haven't spoken to in, I feel like it's been almost 2 years now, almost 3 years. And there's no, I'm at peace with it, honestly. I feel good. But for my mom, it was really tough. And I think that a lot of people don't realize that they're grieving. Like you kind of, when you say grief, you think of, the most traumatic things happening, like you losing, like in your example, you lose someone that you love. But just like many things in life, grief kind of exists on a spectrum too. And you can lose someone that you love so much, or you can lose someone who is still alive, but the relationship has just completely turned into something that you didn't expect. And so I watched my mom kind of go through this period of time where it shocked her system like completely, where to the point where I was like, worried a little bit. So you mentioned earlier how you had like a community of people to kind of like rally you up and help to propel you to the place where you are now. What are some of what are some of the best things that people like myself can do when you're supporting someone who's going through something like that?
When it comes to building your resilience through nutrition, it's really going to boil down to which habits you're able to stick with over an extended period of time. If you invest a little bit of time exploring some habits to find a few that work for your unique lifestyle, then you may realize how simple it could be to enjoy your life while also improving your health. One of the habits that's easy for me to stick to is drinking AG1 by Athletic Greens. AG1 is a powder that you can mix into a beverage of your choice to instantly add 75 vitamins and minerals to your daily diet. It's basically all your key health products like multivitamins, minerals, pre and probiotics, and more working together for your health. I've been drinking it every morning for the past few months, and it's the simplest habit in my routine that supports my energy, my mood, my gut health, my immunity, and my peace of mind now that I don't have to rummage through the pill cabinet looking for a few different things to take at once. I'm sure you can relate to that feeling, and I'm also sure you're ready to take ownership of your health. If you do want to take ownership of your health, today is a good time to start. Athletic Greens is giving you a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. Go to athleticgreens.com/TCHP to take advantage of that. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/TCHP. While we're on the topic of simple habits, one of the cheat codes to improving your health is being well informed on how those habits are affecting your health. Now, of course, there are tons of feedback tools out there you can use to narrow down which habits are working, but what if I told you there was a tool that you could use to give you instant feedback on your diet and lifestyle choices that allows you to build habits based on your unique metabolism? Well, yeah, that tool actually exists, and I use it every day. It's an app called Levels. Levels is building technology that shows you how food is affecting your health via continuous glucose monitors. Here's how it works. When you sign up, you receive 2 14-day sensors in the mail, and after applying one of the sensors to the back of your arm, you begin receiving instant and continuous feedback on your glucose levels. While you're a Levels member, you'll have objective information that exposes how active you are, how well you're sleeping, whether you're eating too much sugar, and a list of many other insights that the app can detect. After addressing those areas of your life and stabilizing your glucose, you may notice that it's much easier to lose fat, maintain your energy throughout the day, have more clear thoughts, and even improve your mood and outlook on life. Those benefits, and many others, are a result of improving your metabolic health with stable glucose, and Levels is doing a great job navigating thousands of other people just like you towards better health. If this sounds like something you could benefit from and you'd like to give a try, I have some good news for you. Levels is offering you 2 free additional months on top of your annual membership when you sign up. Be sure to use the link in the show notes of this podcast to take advantage of this exclusive offer. And please, keep me posted on all the cool things you learn about your body through the process.
I think listening, because often one of the things that I did get, well, I got a lot of messages on social media, like hundreds and hundreds of messages. And it kind of shocked me and humbled me in many ways, because I was like, why is everyone messaging me? Like, who am I for everyone to message me, kind of thing. But it was just, it was really, really humbling. And I guess, you get the kind of generic, oh, let me know if there's anything that you need or anything like that. But I think one thing is to listen, but also to be maybe quite proactive in things that someone might need. So be like, I want to come and meet you, or I'll send me your address so I can send food to your house. Like, a few people did that for me. And it was like, honestly, I cannot thank them enough, because at that time when you're not thinking about, like, particularly in that first week or two, where you're not thinking about trying to cook or anything like that. There was even a company that I was working with beforehand, and they were just like sending me food to my house, a meal prep company. And again, just those types of things, being proactive, and that really, really helped. I honestly can't kind of stress that enough. So, and also, as I said, just listening. If I've had some of my friends who I would just have a chat with, and would just kind of not vent, but just kind of get everything off my chest in that moment that I was dealing with, and just having them listen, have that safe space for me, was really, really useful. So, but what you touched on there, which is really important actually, about how grief comes in different forms. Grief isn't just the death of someone. Grief can come, as you mentioned, you lose a relationship, whether that be a romantic relationship, whether that be a sibling relationship that you don't, in your case, where you maybe not speaking to them anymore. It could even be the loss of a job. Grief is, again, it's that spectrum where, of course, the worst end of it is losing, whether it's a family member or a parent or someone that you're very, very close to. But then it could just be, losing contact with someone or losing a relationship. So it's important to recognize that. And, maybe people need to understand that they need to take time in those situations, because it is grief, but they maybe don't actually recognize that it is grief in many ways. So it's something for them to think about.
Yeah, that's kind of why, really the premise of the entire podcast, because, you're like myself, you kind of pour through some of these studies with nutrition, and, the gold standard is, a meta-analysis of randomized control trials. That's like the gold standard. It's got to be randomized control trial. The only bone that I have to pick with these studies is that they remove all the variables to arrive at a conclusion, which is super helpful when you're trying to understand how your environment impacts the body. But we don't live lives without variables, So it would be great if I could take myself and everyone else in the world and put you in a bubble and remove all the variables of life. But, we can't do that. And so it's really important to have these conversations, because these are things that you can't expose with a study, because the human species is just so complex. But during that period of time where you were experiencing that, I'm going to kind of transition over to nutrition a little bit. Was there a certain, not a protocol, but did you notice how you were processing the entire experience based on the food you were putting in your body, or based on the amount you were moving? If you were shut down and not eating well and not moving, did you find that you had a more difficult time mentally?
I think I would have, to be honest. And it's quite funny, as I said, because after that first week where it's obviously it happened, I moved back in with my mum. I didn't have any of my clothes from my flat. I didn't have any kind of all the foods that I had in my flat, in my fridge were there. I couldn't kind of, obviously there were supermarkets around there and stuff, but my mum had certain foods that I could obviously eat in her house, but I got to a week and I was like, right, I need to do a shop. I need to get back into it. So maybe I was starting to feel the fact that I wasn't eating in the way that I would have wanted to eat. I didn't have full control over it, and I didn't want that to spiral out of control, So yeah, that was something that I felt was necessary for me to get towards. After a week, I was like, yeah, I need to change this. I need to make sure that I can get the foods that I want to get. And then obviously when I did, I started to feel good and started to get back into my training, because as I said, that kind of feeling, I would not wish that on my worst enemy. It's the worst feeling. I can't even describe it. I can't even really explain that kind of feeling that you're going through. You're almost lying there just wishing that you wake up from a really bad dream. And so I can see why people then spiral into alcohol, into drugs, into other substances, because you want to numb yourself from that feeling. And I completely understand that. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to feel all the emotions and feel everything that I needed to feel, because I knew that that would help me in my healing process. Because if I tried to block it out with drugs or alcohol or whatever, it will just manifest and kind of fester further down the line, maybe with more kind of dire consequences. So yeah, I definitely felt that I need, like, getting back into what I needed to get back into health wise was so important, and I needed to do that quite quickly in order to kind of be able to keep my head above water, essentially.
Yeah. So for those who are listening and you're not familiar with Jeffrey, he is plant-based, a vegan, but he's not like a vegan that you see like in the media, the ones that eat the Impossible burgers and like no, it's real whole food. It's just whole food, and it's beautiful. I'm not a plant-based person. I'm more, I guess, an omnivore, some would say. But Jeffrey's inspired me to, include more plants onto my plate. Not just because it looks good, which it does, but I personally felt the benefit of adding more plants, more fiber, getting them into my diet. I mean, another thing that we don't talk about a lot is like poop, but when you're getting that plant, man, like going regularly, that's a good feeling too. It's like,
Yeah,
dang,
exactly.
I'm doing this. But what were some things like in your diet, like your philosophy on how you eat? How do you think that tied into like your ability to, just continue to progress, your resilience? Like, speaking of like, maybe like polyphenols or just like, we know how much food impacts the gut, impacts the brain. What
Yeah.
is it about the way that you eat that has contributed to, the Jeffrey that we all know and love today?
Again, I think getting a multitude of plants in, we've obviously seen, and I'm sure you've shared some of the studies on your kind of platform as well, with regards to how important it is to get a number of different plants for proliferation of a number of different strains of bacteria in the gut, and then that has a link with the brain. That's a well-established link that we see there. And there was a couple of, a number of studies that I saw sort of mid 2022, that around like sort of dietary habits for the kind of alleviation of depressive symptoms and depression. It talks a lot about, whole foods in terms of like polyphenols, like foods like berries, omega-3s, so from walnuts, chia, flax. Of course, if you're eating fatty fish as well, that's really good. And if you're, DHA, EPA supplement, if you're plant-based, and just making sure that dark leafy greens for the brain as well, avocado, even herbs, certain things like gotu kola, lion's mane. I wanted to make sure that I was getting a lot of these foods that I know are health promoting and I know are protective, neuroprotective, because I wanted to just keep all of my faculties. I wanted to just keep them on 100. You know what I mean? Make sure that they were in the best possible shape. So yeah, I mean, as I said, I always eat whole foods anyway, 95, 96, 97% of the time. If I'm out and about, at social events, that I'm not too concerned about that. But when I'm in my house and I'm in control, it's whole foods. It's plenty of color, plenty of antioxidants, and just knowing exactly what I'm putting into my body is so critical for me. And I think at that time, after that initial week, I was like, I needed to be even more dialed in and even more in control of what I was eating, just to make sure that I had a handle on my faculties.
So you just said something very important, and I want to highlight. You said that you looked at studies that linked certain eating habits to the alleviation of depression, and we know that depression, anxiety, many of the, I guess I'm not sure if it's a neurodegenerative disease, but many of the things that we see that involve the brain oftentimes link back to the gut. Were there any like non-negotiables that you had during that period of time as far as your diet was concerned? Like, hey, like, I know these things, so I'm going to make sure I get these, 3, 5, 7 things into my diet on a consistent basis.
Do you know what, actually, one thing that was really interesting was I made a real point to get my medicinal mushroom intake. So I've been on medicinal mushrooms like chaga, lion's mane, reishi. And actually, one of the first things when I was obviously at my mum's house, and I went to there's a health food store called Planet Organic, which is quite near to where my mum lives. And when I used to live in that area, I was there all the time. And they have medicinal mushrooms. And when I first started using them about 6 years ago, really saw some benefits in terms of mental clarity, alongside all the change that I was making in my diet, of course. And then just reading about a lot of the studies, for example, with reishi and helping with sleep, and chaga with immune function and skin, and lion's mane for cognitive ability and gut health. And I was like, I want to get back on this. Well, I mean, not that I was off it, but I was like, I need to get on this. Alongside all the things that I'm doing with my diet, let me get on the medicinal mushrooms and make sure that I'm taking them every morning, drinking them in hot water as a tea. And also one of the other non-negotiables was I didn't want to drink any alcohol at that time. Now I don't drink much alcohol anyway. Over sort of the last 3, 4, 5 years, my alcohol intake has just dipped completely. I don't really see the benefit of drinking alcohol, and sometimes a glass of wine with dinner with friends, but other than that, I tend to steer away from it. And at that time, I was like, I'm not really interested in drinking much alcohol at all, because I didn't want to dull my senses to what was going on. I thought maybe if I have one, I'll just go and start having loads and try and block out everything that was going on, and then wake up the next morning and realize that nothing's changed. I just feel worse on top. So that was a real important one for me. So yeah, as I said, getting as many plants in, getting those medicinal mushrooms in every morning. Obviously, as I mentioned, the training, but also staying away from the substances which I felt could kind of move me away from kind of where I was. I wanted to have complete mental clarity with what was going on. So that was really important for me.
Yeah, that's interesting. I saw you post on your Instagram recently. You had a glass of wine, I think, and you were like, yeah, I'm not doing that again. I'll probably stop forever.
Yeah. So it was an event that I was at, and I had one glass of rosé. And then I looked at my Whoop stats, because I used the Whoop, and my sleep was terrible. Just one glass. I was just like, yeah, this is this is not for me anymore. So
What's so funny
yeah.
about that is a lot of people will look at that and be like, man, Jeffrey's he's so restrictive. He's training every day. He doesn't eat Impossible Burgers. He's not. He's doing the mushrooms and the omegas and all these things, right? It looks, from the outside looking in, it looks unattainable for the lay person, for the average person. They're like, I can't do that. I can't avoid alcohol. I can't, drink this mushroom tea. I'm not gonna do my omega-3 supplement every day. Why are you like? Is there anything different? And I guess I know the answer. I know what you're gonna say, but I want to hear it anyway. Is there anything different about you that makes you more in tune with the habits that make you feel better?
I guess, again, for me, it all started in 2017 when I came across this documentary, What the Health, which kind of then pushed me down the path of a plant-based diet. But because I'd already had a base of wanting to train and build muscle and be fit and strong and that kind of stuff, I wanted to do it to support that. As I said, most people can come across that documentary and maybe they wouldn't make the change, but maybe I can be quite extreme. Sometimes I'm like, I want to see something. If this works for me, I want to see it. And it then worked for me and it was great. And then I was starting to optimize other areas of my health. I think the main thing about me and maybe many others is that I completely get that society doesn't really support health practice, doesn't really kind of, not everyone's doing it. It's still a niche. It's a very niche thing, if we're being honest with you. The majority of society, we're, overstressed. We're not eating good quality foods. We're going out on Friday and Saturday drinking copious amounts of alcohol, and that's accepted in society as a norm, and that's okay. But I'm okay with not being in the norm. But I want to kind of take people along with me, and not to the point where, as you say, because at the point that I'm at now with my nutrition and my supplementation and my training and the cold exposure and things like that, I wasn't there at the start. That wasn't me. This is me like nearly 5.5, 6 years in. So I need people to understand that this is a process. This is, okay, do you have to completely eliminate alcohol from your life right now? No, you don't have to eliminate it, but you could reduce it. You could maybe go on a night out and just be like, you know what, I'm not going to have any. And you will get pushback from friends and whatever, but just be okay with that. Do you have to eat 95% whole foods? No, but you could do 75 or 80 and cook, 75 or 80% of your meals from home. That's a great strategy. Do you have to train 5 times a week, in sauna and cold plunge? No, you don't have to do that. But if you can start with 2 or 3 training sessions a week, that's a great platform to get things going. And also understanding that, a lot of people feel like they have to rely on motivation to get these things done. Motivation is a very fleeting emotion. If you rely on motivation to get things done, you won't really get a lot of things done. I started a cold shower practice in December, every day in December, and I've just continued it every single day. First thing in the morning. I know it sounds crazy, and I know you hate the cold as well.
I hate the cold.
But for me, I started doing it, and I was like, I'm seeing benefits that I'm taking over into other areas of my life in terms of discipline, in terms of confronting hard things that I don't want to do, because there's not a single moment, there's not a single day when I get up in the morning and I'm excited to get into a cold shower. I'm not. I dislike the idea, but I get in, I deal with it, and that's my little dose of resilience for the day. So, but again, do people have to do that to be healthy right at the start? No, they don't, but they can build up to it. It's all about building up to where you want to go, and understanding that society might not support you and people might think you're a bit strange, but eventually they could see you as someone who they can look to for inspiration, and ask you questions about how they can improve their life.
Yeah, I want to get back to the cold showers, but before I do, I think that from my perspective, man, it looks like whatever happened, and well, when you watch What the Health, I think it looks like What the Health saved your life in a sense, because I can't imagine that you would have been able to deal with such a difficult experience if you didn't have the tools to take care of yourself. And you have been practicing for what, 3 years up until that unfortunate incident on how to build yourself up and take better care of yourself. But I think one of the unfortunate things about the world that we live in today, with this instant gratification, people see Jeffrey and they're like, I want to be Jeffrey with who Jeffrey is right now. I want to have the knowledge. Like, it doesn't matter how many studies I read about plant-based nutrition, I will never be able to put together such a beautiful bowl of like whatever it is that you're putting together, because you've got 5 years of experience on me with doing so. But let's go back to 2017 after you saw What the Health documentary. What was it like for you then? Like, where did you start?
I mean, it was crazy because, as I said, I was, big omnivore, ate a lot of chicken, boiled eggs in the morning, fish, beef, everything, like growing up in a Ghanaian household, and came across the information and I was just like, oh, okay, interesting. I want to change. And I just completely just flipped overnight. And what I did was I kind of utilized some of the foods that I had existing in my diet that were plant-based. So I'd actually recently come across lentils at the time. So I'd started eating some lentils. So I was like, okay, I could base it around lentils. I was eating oatmeal anyway. So I was like, okay, we could do oatmeal. Obviously just, okay, plant protein powder instead of whey protein. Okay, we can do that. Adding peppers and sweet potatoes and beans. These were foods that I was eating. So I was kind of almost just going with the bare bones of the plant foods. But then realizing, okay, so what else do I need to add? I need to make sure my protein intake is good. So then I started coming across organic tofu and then tempeh a little bit further down the line. And obviously still, utilizing plant protein powders and lentils and beans, which I was starting to read all had, varying amounts of protein. So that was really the process. It was kind of almost trial and error. I also was eating a lot of falafel just because that was really like easy for me to get and eat. So there was a lot of that, a lot of hummus as well. And just, as I said, whilst doing all of that, a lot of learning as well. So just finding any kind of resources, research papers, doctors, other people who are plant-based on Instagram, and just trying to just get as much knowledge as possible, kind of almost get all that knowledge into a bucket and then start rummaging around and making it into like the best way that I could do things for me. So, and then obviously realizing about the supplementation side of things. So, okay, eat your chia, flax, and hemp for your omega-3s, but just have a DHA EPA supplement as an insurance policy. Have your B12, that's really important. Vitamin D, if you're not getting into the sun, you need to do that. But what's funny is that all of this, what I was learning was just kind of widening my scope and understanding of health as a whole, and not just like plant-based. I was learning about nutrients and nutrient intake and all these things that I was just so oblivious to beforehand. I know where I'm getting my zinc from now, whereas before I didn't even think about zinc. It wasn't even, I just thought about protein. That was it, So I've now just got a more rounded understanding of health, of nutrition, of, sources of supplementation, minerals, vitamins. And I just happen to have put that into a plant-based kind of box, really. I could have, what I could have done at the time is I could have reduced my meat intake and still been very, very healthy. I've said many times, I don't think you need to be vegan to be healthy. You're a perfect example of that. But I was like, right, if I'm going to do this, I want to do it from a health focused standpoint and make sure that I'm doing the best that I can possibly do for my health and manage my training and things like that. So that was it. It was all kind of just trial and error, learning on the job almost. And as I said, at the point that I'm at now, people think that I've just appeared there, but I remember a while back I showed some of my first bowls of food that I made, and it was just stuff
I
that was
remember
just
that.
thrown together.
Yeah.
I just threw stuff together. I didn't know what I was doing, but now I've got an understanding. I'm like, okay, get your whole grains in there, get your organic tofu or tempeh for protein, avocado for healthy fats, black beans, sauerkraut and fermented foods, which I had no idea about at the start. So it's been a journey. And I think, again, as you mentioned, the instant gratification, people aren't really willing to maybe go down that process of whether it's 2, 3, 4 years of learning, of knowledge, of trial and error on yourself to then get to a
Yeah.
point where you can look like you've been an overnight success in many ways.
No matter how well you take care of your health, even if you're doing the many things mentioned in this episode, you're still not exempt from the fact that sometimes in life, stuff happens. We get sick, we have accidental injuries, and there's not much we can do to prepare for these moments because it's not like we know they're coming. One thing you should do in case of an unexpected injury or illness is have health insurance coverage in place. Now, if you have a career, this is likely covered by your job, but there are hundreds of thousands of people just like me who don't work a traditional job but still need coverage. You'd assume that it's automatically going to be more expensive and have fewer benefits, but I'm here to tell you that that's not the case. Thanks to my experience with Access Benefit Consultants. They're one of the partners of this podcast, and because of them, my family has affordable coverage with the benefits that are comparable to what you'd find from a company-sponsored plan. All I had to do was reach out to an agent, answer a few questions about my family size and income, and in less than an hour, I was presented with a quote and had an option to enroll. Insurance has honestly always been boring and confusing to me, and while it's still kind of boring, Access took the confusion out of the process for me, and I'll forever be grateful. If you have questions about your health coverage, or if you don't have any at all, I think you should reach out to Access Benefit Consultants. Go to accessbenefits.com for a free quote, or you can fill out the contact form on their website, and one of their agents will be in touch with you in no time. Again, that's accessbenefits.com.
And it does take that much time. So 2-3 years exactly, that's the point. You see, I notice a lot of people, what we do is we start a diet, and I think that the approaching lifestyle through a diet, it can be helpful. You can do a diet for a long enough time and absolutely reap the benefits. But if you don't go through the investigative process of how that diet is contributing to your overall health, then you're either a slave to the diet because you don't know how to modify it enough to, keep yourself healthy. Or what a lot of people do, they quit, they stop, and then they don't know how to repeat those results regardless of what their approach to nutrition is. But you said it took 2 to 3 years in order for you to build, I guess, a solid understanding of how to eat for health. Is that, I don't know, do you think that's realistic for the average person? Do you think that most people need to buckle down and be like, all right, flip the calendar 2-3 years and put an X on it and just stay interested until then? Is that realistic for the average person?
I mean, look, you can probably, it maybe might not even take that long. And I guess I'm kind of saying that it took me that long to really build the depth of the knowledge that I have on plant-based nutrition. I'd say after maybe a few months, I was in an okay place. I was in a pretty good place, which would probably benefit a lot of people. I'm just thinking, because again, for me and you, there's so much science and there's so many papers that come out. So it was almost like, for me, it's a never-ending journey because there's always stuff to read. There's always things to learn about. But for example, I didn't start eating kimchi or sauerkraut for at least a couple of years or something like that. I wasn't aware of these foods. They didn't come across my radar. My understanding of gut health and its importance, getting the multiple plants into the diet, that wasn't something that, again, that took a couple of years to really kind of come across my radar, to really then start to think, okay, let's start to diversify the plant-based sources of, the protein and whole grains and legumes and things like that. I think what people have to do is maybe just not expect changes right away, not expect adjustment straight away. Your taste buds have to turn over, your gut has to turn over, your mentality and actually your mindset has to turn over from thinking, I have to eat healthy or I do this or I do that, to actually thinking, well, I get to do this. I get to nourish my body. I get to wake up with mental clarity. I get to sleep in an incredible way because of the changes that I'm making in my life. So that's really the aim. Lifestyle over diet. Yes, as you mentioned, you can build a lifestyle from the dietary kind of habit that you're working with, but you can become a slave to the diet, and ultimately, if maybe you've had enough of it, you just quit. But if you think about it from a lifestyle perspective, I think that this is the way that I want to live. You know, and I do understand that there are social considerations as well. We are kind of social beings, so if people are starting to ridicule you for whatever you're doing, it's understandable that people might just be like, oh, you know what, let me just do what everyone else is doing, so I feel like I'm a part of the group. But these things happen. I put a post about this the other day, is that often when we're in groups, whether it's family or friends or whatever, they might see you making healthy changes to your life, and they might try to ridicule you, they might try to belittle you, but it's just an internal projection of where they're at, really, and it's them seeing someone else challenging their own inner stagnation, which is what forces them to want to start trying to lash out almost, and turn and tell you, oh, you're still doing that vegan thing, or you're still doing the healthy eating thing, almost as in a way to make you think that it's stupid. But everyone knows that it's not a stupid thing to do. Everyone knows that taking care of your health is one of the smartest things that you can do as a human being.
100%. I personally think it is the smartest thing you can do, because everything else
it is the smartest.
flows down.
Exactly.
But that's because we're both passionate about it.
Yeah, exactly.
But you said it took you 6 months to a year. Well, no, 2 years to build the breadth of knowledge that you have, and to have the mindset. And the mindset is really like the key. And that's when you start doing weird things like taking cold showers every morning.
Yeah. There's no way I was taking a cold shower early on the journey. No way.
And that's what's so cool about this, because, I think, I actually started in 2017. I had a business. We built an indoor trampoline park, and we invested, it was like $1.5 million. Lost everything. Lost everything, and it sent me to a really bad place. And I just spent some time reflecting, praying, and I was like, what am I gonna do? And just the only thing I could think of was like, just be consistent with what's 100% in your control. And at the time, it was exercising, going to the gym.
Yeah.
That's one of the very few things that is not influenced by outside factors. You wake up in the morning, like how you move your body is 100% on you. So I was consistent with that, and that's what got me on my journey of doing all these things. But if you would have asked me in 2017 if I'll ever jump in a pool that's 40 degrees, 35 degrees, I would never do it. But I did.
Right.
And I think that's kind of where I want to get your insight on next, is how doing these things bleeds over into other areas of your life. So now you're waking up in the morning, taking a cold shower. I'm not quite there yet. I'm going to do it, but I'm not there yet.
Yeah.
But in what ways are you seeing the benefit of that? Like, okay, so like, outside of the physiological stuff, they say that it helps with brown adipose tissue, which increases your basal metabolic rate, all these things. But in what ways are you seeing that bleed over into other, probably more meaningful areas of your life?
I think it's about discipline. And I think discipline is a key kind of component in being the best version of yourself that you can possibly be. As I said, I don't want to get up. If it was up to me, and I say up to me, because there's that second side of me, which is just like, go and do it. But I'll be there and I'm like, oh, why am I doing this? And then I get in and then I firm it. And then after, I'm like, all right, I'm happy, I'm good, because I've exercised that level of discipline. I've almost killed that area of my mind which wants to be comfortable. I think comfort is one of the biggest killers in society today. We live a very, very comfortable existence as modern humans. We live in, nice air-conditioned flats. We can order food to our house in a matter of minutes on Uber Eats, delivery, whatever it is. We can watch Netflix. We don't have to go and exercise or any of these things. So I think doing all of these practices is a conscious choice to endure a little bit of discomfort for that longer term benefit. It's just the definition of delayed gratification. Whereas maybe instant gratification is what a lot of society is predicated upon. So for me, as I said, in terms of how it helps in other areas of my life, it's, if I come across something where I'm like, oh, I don't want to do that or whatever, I just think to myself, You've done a cold shower and you didn't want to do that either, and it was terrible and you endured it. So this should be a bit of a doddle. You can do this. Do you know what I mean? And you
Yep.
just become more disciplined. You become more focused, and it allows you to want to become the best version of yourself in other areas of your life, like in your professional work, in your relationships. How can I show up as the best partner to my partner and things like that? So yeah, that's probably the main reason why I do it. Of course, there are the physiological benefits, but I get out of that shower not thinking about brown fat, but thinking about how I've overcome that part of my mind which didn't want to get uncomfortable.
Yeah. I don't know if anybody, or very few people, take a cold shower and like, all right, I got some extra brown fat in my body. And like,
Exactly.
I don't think that either. I haven't done a cold plunge in a minute. I'm gonna do it again very
Yeah.
soon. I'm not even afraid
Yeah.
of being cold, but for me, like I've noticed very similar things. Like I can be outside in the cold weather, and I've personally learned how to control my breath and accept the environment that I'm in. And that's such a powerful thing, because when I experience discomfort in other areas of my life, you draw on that same breath to get you through whatever discomfort that you're feeling. And I think that, kind of tying all of this in, we are all going to experience discomfort in
Yep.
life, one way or
Yep.
the other, whether it's the loss of a loved one, whether your son stops talking to you, like my little brother and his my mom,
Yeah.
or like, shoot, raising kids. That's a whole nother, like,
Oh yeah.
that's a whole nother level of discomfort. But
Yeah.
that is I feel like that's the price, that we all pay for the opportunity to have such a robust experience with life.
Yeah.
And so, doing hard things like taking cold showers in the morning, or getting through hard stuff like losing your wife. Like, I can't imagine how that's shaped your philosophy moving forward. I know that in some way it's made you a better person, and you can't really go back and say that you would change it because it happened. But that's like the point of life. That's the point of life. We are all destined to go through hard things,
Yeah.
and I think that the least that we can do is build ourselves up to experience these things with grace, so that we can continue to live good lives in the
Yeah.
long run.
Exactly that. I think it's so important to. It's funny because when around about things maybe 3 or 4 weeks after it happened, I went for acupuncture, and the lady was kind of asking me about how my health was and what I was going through and things like that, and I told her, but I told her that I've obviously been someone who's been focused with my health practices for a number of years now, 4 years at that point, and she even said to me, she said, the fact that you do a lot of things with regards to your health has probably helped you build that resilience and almost help to bulletproof you in some kind of way to make sure to allow you to be able to find a way out of this. So as you say, I think there's a saying from someone that discomfort is the price to pay for a meaningful life. And discomfort can come in forms, as we've mentioned, whether it's taking cold showers or being disciplined with your healthy eating habits or training in the gym, that's a discomfort. Asking yourself, are you the best version of yourself that you can possibly be? That's another discomfort, because we don't want to ask ourselves these questions really. But what that does is it just widens your perspective. It opens up the scope for reflection on how you can be the best version of yourself. The training allows you to be stronger in your mind and in your body. And when those inevitable bad things happen in life, you're in a position where mentally you're strong enough and physically you're strong enough, and your spiritual grounding is there to be able to deal with it, to be able to find a way to come through it. So yeah, I think getting uncomfortable is a really, really important thing that I think we have to find a way to do.
Yeah, that's really the foundation of it all. And I told you before, I think that, like, of course, you're most well known for your approach to plant-based nutrition, and which you're great at teaching people how to include more plants in their diet from a non-biased perspective. And that's very hard to do, because there are a lot of people who, they spend most of their time speaking down on other diet ideologies.
Yeah,
And
a lot of
Jeffrey, you're like,
people.
man, look, yeah, it's like, hey, look, this is what I do. I would love for you to
Yeah,
join me on this. I just want you to, to become healthy overall. But I think that's really the point of all of this. And for me too, like, I talk a lot about like blood sugar balance and, a multitude of things, but at the root of it, it's not about what you eat. It's really like, I want you in anybody to have a good life, you know. And
Yeah.
in order to have a good life, putting your body first by doing things that make you resilient, by doing all the health promoting things that you did. Like, I think you're a perfect example of that. Of doing things for 3 years, you have a tough experience, and you're still here, and you've grown in your gift. And I think that is like, that's just the ultimate testament to how important it is to be resilient and put your health first, so that
Yeah.
when you do come across these hard things in life, you'll continue to thrive. So kudos to you, man. I'm like, I don't have words for it, man. I have so much respect for you and everything that you've been through, and your approach and the value that you give to society today, man. I think that I don't know, you're here. I think that one day, like, it's just going. This year was big for you, but you got so much
Yeah.
more in store, man.
I appreciate that, man. I really do. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So I guess with that, man, we can cut the podcast. Jeffrey, where can people find you, man? Let me say this first. He is plant-based. You do not have to be plant-based to enjoy this man's content. As someone who eats an omnivorous, I'm an omnivore, as they would say.
Yeah. Yeah.
I will still strongly encourage everyone to have a plant-based diet. Whether you have meat or not, you should still have plants at the foundation of your diet. There are too many studies to encourage you to do so. But I have your ebook, and I use one of the recipes, the brown rice.
Is it,
Was it
is it
brown
the one with
rice?
mushrooms and kale?
That's the one.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
easy. Nice, easy one. It's good. And I'm
Super
sure you probably
easy,
had a
super
bit of
easy
protein
way.
on the side. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. So where can people find more information about you, your blog, the recipes that you have to offer? Give me the list.
Yeah, so obviously my Instagram, Jeffrey Boadi, my Twitter, which is Jeffrey Boadi as well, with an underscore at the end. So Twitter, I like to talk about, it's more of a writing platform, Twitter. I do share my recipes there sometimes, but more thoughts around my philosophy around health and life. My website, www.thewealthofhealth.co.uk. There's recipes there. You can also sign up to my newsletter, which I send out weekly. Whether that's just giving, again, some more insights into health, plant-based nutrition, foods to get into the diet and things like that. So yeah, that's kind of really it. I mean, I'm working on a couple of projects at the moment. So yeah, hopefully we'll have some news about some exciting things in the coming future. So yeah, that's where you can find me.
Come on. Any final words for anybody listening or inspired by your story?
I think just take the time to build resilience within yourself through optimizing your health practices, or trying to just start to build health practices, getting uncomfortable, whether that be in the gym or going for a run or doing something that you don't want to do in the initial phase but is going to benefit you further down the line. Focus on that, delaying your gratification as opposed to getting that instant dopamine hit. That's so important. Just understand that, I guess in the context of my experience with what I went through, accept that the cycle of life does involve death. But what you can do is you can, have people rally around you, and you can make that choice to want to say yes to life despite what life can throw at you. And you can still live a purposeful, meaningful life despite the things that you might go through.
Beautiful. All right, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Jeffrey, appreciate you joining me. Yeah, just gonna hit stop recording because